Hi everyone, I'm Stella. I'm a health and fitness coach for women in menopause, and I am the host of this Inspire show. And as you know, I always bring guests who can inspire you. Today, I have my special guest, John A. Brink. He's 84-year-old, and he's a CEO, author, mentor, podcaster, bodybuilder, ADHD advocate, serial entrepreneur, and who knows what else. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Fine, thanks.
Nice to be on your show here, Stella, from Budapest, Hungary.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
So, what is the time now? By you, it is 10 hours later than mine is about 3 o'clock.
It's midnight.
And yours is midnight.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Here I am.
You, it looks like you have a very inspirational life. Uh, can you
But
tell me your story? I know you were born in Hollandia. Where were you born in?
I was born in Holland in
Holland.
1940,
Yeah.
and in the province Holland in Groningen, which is the extreme northeast, right up against the German border.
Mm.
And I was born there in November of 1940, and as you already know, the Second World War had just started then, and Hitler, the dictator, had decided to invade uh, Europe, and so things were tough. My dad was drafted into the Dutch army in April of 1940. My mom was pregnant with me. I had a brother and a sister, 1 year, 2 years older than me. And the last I heard from my dad is when he was caught in the bombing of Rotterdam that killed thousands and thousands of people. And they would not know for 5 years if he had survived.
Mm.
And then the first thing that I remember of the war when I was about 3.5, 4 years old were hundreds of bombers in the air from the Allied forces bombing the northwestern part of Germany where all the infrastructure was Kiel, Hamburg, Wilhelmshaven, Bremen, all those cities. And my mom would take us outside and we would stay on the flat roof behind a house to look towards Germany, and the whole sky was red. The reason that she did, she felt safer outside than inside. And so,
Mm.
and then the next thing I remember is that we were liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945, as part of the Allied forces. And before that, things were tough. 1944, in particular, Hitler had cut off all the food supply to Holland, and again, thousands of kids and older people that were vulnerable died from hunger and starvation.
Mm.
And then the winter of 44, 45 was the coldest on history. And my brother, my sister, myself, every morning we would go with gunny sacks into the railroad yards, pick up anything edible and burnable. And the
Mm.
reason that we did as kids, because the Germans wouldn't shoot us, they would boot us one, and then we come back the following day. So then we saw far too much that we should not have seen when the Canadian Army pushed the Germans through Northern Holland back to Germany. Saw very many people that died, that got shot, and then obviously the liberation by the Canadians of our area, April the 12th, 1945. And it left such an impression on me that I always knew from that point forward I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And
Ah.
so first time I was going to go when I was 17, and my parents wouldn't let me then. And then I went when I was 23. And I went to Canada, and then the other dream that I had is to start a lumber mill, and all the timber, or a lot of the timber in Canada is in British Columbia on the west coast. And so flew into Montreal, took the train across Canada, 5 days, 4 nights. Can you believe it? It's a long, long way to go. And we landed in a city called Vancouver. And so, and where I am today and where I came 60 years ago is in northern British Columbia, is a city called Prince George. It's 500 miles north of Vancouver, or for our European friends, 800 kilometers. And that's where
Hmm.
I am today. And
Wow.
yes, I did build my lumber mill and a lot of other companies, and did a lot of stuff. And I have been here now for 60 years.
Wow.
But I still remember Hungary and and Central Europe in the 50s and 60s, when the Russians invaded Hungary, and a lot of people were killed as well. A lot of people were
Mhm.
hurt, and a lot of people left Hungary. And Hungary became a democratic country then, but and is part of NATO, I believe. But the leadership of Hungary is a little bit too far to the right for me, a little bit too close to Russia, actually, in my liking. But it's my opinion.
Yeah, but now it's okay. But was it before? It's much better.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
and
I
I'm
didn't feel anything from this past because I'm 55. So
yes, 55 years young.
yes, exactly.
So
And
that's kind of a little bit of my background. So I've been here for 60 years, and so I have a background. I still was affected by PTSD from the war years. The inner child affected me. The fear of losing my only parent, my mom. Got counseling for that actually in my 50s, very emotional. And then the other part, and you already mentioned it, I found out in my 60s, late 50s actually, that I picked up a book in a store here in Prince George. Academically, I was not a success story. I failed grade 3, I failed grade 7 3 times. And they said, what should we do with this guy? Maybe send him to the mentally challenged school. He said, no, we're not going to do that. Let's teach them a trade. And so they sent me to a furniture factory. I liked that because I like lumber. My grandfather was a master carpenter. My dad worked before he went to the war in a lumber company and after. And so I did that at 13. I worked in a furniture factory, and at nights I would go to become a furniture maker. And I was always a little bit, my friend, young guys, young people in particular, guys in particular, in my case, that were my friends, they kind of looked down on me. They went on to college and university, and I became a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then it was kind of looked down on. And but I always knew that I was just as smart as they were. Not better than, but just as smart. But I had to start all over again. And going to Canada, and the dream of building a lumber mill was a goal for me. And I wanted to start
mhm.
with nothing. Couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. Came to Vancouver and talked to the immigration department there. I could speak English, but fortunately there was a German fellow there, and I could speak some German. I told him what I wanted to do. He said, go to Prince George, 800 kilometers north. That's where all the lumber mills are, and that's where the opportunities are. So that's what I did 60 years ago. Came off the bus here with my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. And but I had attitude. I'm always positive, no matter how tough today is. always believe tomorrow is going to be better. If people talk negative, I say, I don't want nothing to do with it. I'm positive. I have a passion. Whatever I do, I give it 125%. And then work ethic, the harder you work, success will follow. And so I'm one of the hardest working individuals. Even now, still, I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always think I'm late. I always make my bed. And so I still work hard. Now, all these years later, when I went into a bookstore, I picked up a book when I was 57. And the book title was Living to Distraction, and written by Dr. Halliwell. And the book was about ADHD. And so, and I said, oh my God, that's me. And so, and the more I read about the book, the more I became aware of, yeah, that is me. That's was my life. And that changed my life. And, now I call it a superpower. And a lot of people say to me, how do you do all the things that you do? You have all these companies, you write all these books, you're podcasting, you're writing, you're giving presentations all over the place. How do you do it? I say ADHD, that's how I do it.
So it's
And
your
I,
superpower.
yeah, and I have dyslexia. So, and that's so dyslexia and ADHD. So, but I'm a good writer, not a good reader, right?
So, and
So
you
that's kind of
wrote
me.
a few books.
Yeah, it's about 5 that I wrote, and then still working on a couple other ones. And I
And
like it.
what are they about?
So the first one that I did is that people used to say to me, you have such an interesting life. You should write a book about it. Writing books is not easy. And so I for 20 years I stopped, I started, I stopped, I started, I stopped. And then I knew 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if I don't do it now, it will never happen. And so I wrote this one, Against All Odds. And so that was the first one. And it took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, 2 years to write it. And so it's quite successful, actually. And it's on all the major media. And it's Audible as well. So I read it as well. Difficult for me, but I thought it was important to do that. Because, and then the other part, the more I found out about ADHD, the more I felt I had to speak about it, share it with others, because I found that so many people were ashamed to talk about it. That was looked at as a liability or a dysfunctional part or mental disorder. So I wrote a book about it, ADHD Unlocked, and quite popular, actually. You can read it anywhere, going either forward or backward. It's always interesting, the whole book. But it's not only for people that have ADHD, other people that have learning difficulty, may it be because of trauma or other reasons, that become slow learners. It's interesting for them as well. And then the other part that I believe, Stella, is that I say to people in a general sense, the frequency of occurrence, I thought at first, was something like 8 or 10%. The more I read about it, the more I thought it's much higher than that. Now, I do podcasting as well, as you know, and I've done about 350 or so podcasts. My podcast number 203, On the Brink with John A. Brink, 203, was a podcast I did with the author of the book that I bought in 1997, Dr. Halliwell, Driven to Distraction. And he is a medical doctor. He wrote 18 books, 5 on distraction, is known internationally. He was on my podcast. And so, can you imagine? He wrote the book in 1997. I bought it in 1997 in my studio where I do the podcasting when I'm the host, not when I'm the guest. I'm in my company office, but uh, I have the book still there, and I would say here is the book, not this one, but the other one, and the date is right on it, January 1997, and I wrote in Dutch because I was ashamed of it. Now I finally know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so so I interviewed him on my podcast number 203. And so I mentioned to him, he's the expert. I lived it, but he is the expert. He is also ADHD and has dyslexia. And so I mentioned to him that I thought that probably at least 20% of the population ADHD. He said, no, John, at least 25%. I agree with him. And then with all the businesses I've been involved in, and all the companies and board of directors and all the other things that I've done in business, I met many, many business people. And those that I met, especially the successful ones, and the operative is the successful ones, the unique ones. I would say, I said to Dr. Halliwell that I believe that 50% of them, in my opinion, are ADHD. He said, no, John, probably 75%. And I
Oh.
agree with him. So overall, I believe between male, female, females presented differently than males for obvious reasons, as you well understand, that at least I would say close to 30% of the population around the world have some form of ADHD. In
Mm-hmm.
combination, maybe with dyslexia or other combinations of other, mental issues of some description or another.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the one book. And then I wrote another book is that I find so often that, in particular, young people, that I do a lot of presenting at schools, high schools, colleges, universities. And a lot of times when I do presentations, then I say, so tell me what you plan to do for a career. And most of them say, I don't know. I said, respectfully, you should try to find out, because I heard the story on one of the US radio stations, and they said that in the United States, and I think Canada is the same, that 75% of the people that work do not like their job. And
Mm-hmm.
70% of the 75% are looking for another job. And so I said to the students, that most of your lifetime you'll be doing a job or a career that you have focused on. Try to make sure it is something that you like to do, because if you don't, you take it home, it affects your whole life in an adverse way.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to be a truck driver, talk to truck drivers. They love to talk to you. If you want to be a carpenter, talk to people that are carpenters. If you want to be a contractor that builds houses, talk to a contractor that builds houses. You want to be a doc, talk to doctors. If you want to be a lawyer, talk to lawyers. And what you will find, in a lot of cases, people like that love to talk to you if you approach them in the right way and saying, I'm interested in the job choice that you have followed. Can you tell me about it? What should I do? How do I go about it? How will it affect me if I can make a choice, if that's the way I want to go? Or for that matter, be an entrepreneur. Talk to entrepreneurs like me. They love to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I felt I had to write a book about it. So I wrote a book about it, Finding Your Passion, Living the
Living
Dream.
a dream. Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote one more, I got for you. And there's nothing more important. All the things that you have and that you do at the end, especially when you get older, and especially guys like me that go into the 60s, 70s, 80s, in my case, that at some point in life you get a shock and you say, oh my goodness, health, fitness, diet, all of those things are important. I must understand it. So in my case, I nearly died. I had a case of diverticulitis. I don't know if you know what it is. If you have pain on your right side of your body, it's probably the appendix is there, or the left side is your colon. And
Mm-hmm.
so it affects the colon. And in my case, they call it diverticulitis. It was a rupture of the colon, and all the toxins go through your system. You have about 48 hours before it starts attacking all your healthy organs. And so they took 20 centimeters out of my colon, put it back together, and I came that close. And so then I thought, what I had done before is I do like everybody does. At the end of the year, say, I'm going to do this next year, this, that, and I'm going to buy a membership to the gym. And then 2 weeks later, I can find 100 reasons why I'm too busy to go to the gym. And so, but I did, and I got a trainer, worked with them, and because that my life is appointments and commitments that I make. And then at the same time, I started looking at my diet. And it was very, very important that my wife is a vegetarian, and I didn't listen well to her as well as I could have, should have. And so, but then I looked at it much more closely. And so I'm a vegan. I call that 80-20, maybe even 90-10. And so I went to the gym. And after 6 years in the gym, and that was in 2009 till about 2015, 14, somebody came up to me and say, hey, John, have you ever thought about competing? I said, competing? Bodybuilding? Me? Yeah, you. I said, well, why not? So I started training for bodybuilding. And so I started bodybuilding and started competing in northern British Columbia and came in second bodybuilding, third in physique. That qualified me for the provincials, came in third in bodybuilding, second in physique. That qualified me for the nationals and for the Arnolds. And the Arnolds is a very, very big show in the United States. And then
Mm-hmm.
COVID came. And so now I'm training again to go to the Arnolds and the nationals in 2025. And so I wrote about a book about that, Living Young, Dying Old. Here's the book.
Yes.
That's
People should read, I think, this because many older people think that they are not good in anything and they are not workout, don't doing anything. So I think if somebody is doing any kind of workouts, I think it's the most important thing to stay healthy and vital and everything.
critical, Stella, because and you have to think about diet. So the diet that I do, if I go to a grocery store, we stay on the outside of the grocery store
Mm,
because inside is all the processed foods. And I don't know what is in those cans and what they put in it.
mm,
So it's mainly vegetable-based food. And then I'm very careful about my diet. And so, and then between that and the gym, I'm doing well. And then, so the key is to stay mentally healthy, stay active. Podcasting works well. Write books, managing 10 companies. And then the other part is diet. Very careful with my diet, not obsessive, but careful. And then I go to the gym, so, and I like that, so so it keeps me healthy, keeps me fit. So, but I say to a lot of people is that there's a bit of a mystery about it all and confusing, but I say to most people is get sunshine or vitamin D, that's good. Get sleep at least 7 to 9 hours a night if you can. 7.5, 8.5 hours a night. Very, very important. Be careful with your diet. Go plant-based, but processed food usually has a lot of things in it that are not good for you. And my diet is substantially plant-based. And then get exercise. Don't have to be an Olympian, do not have to be a bodybuilder, but at least, the go to the gym, and if that is something that you have difficulty with, walk. And even if you go walk half an hour a day, or maybe 3 days a week, and then before you know it, then go 4 days a week, and maybe then go 5 days a week, and then go walk with your wife or your friend or whatever, your partner, whatever it may be. And then stay the course. And you know what will happen? Somebody will say, "Hey, Stella, you look good. What are you doing?" And you say to yourself, diet, exercise, and gradually your body will react to it. And so because you only got one body and you have to treat it, and it is extremely forgiving, but what usually happens in the last decades of somebody's life is that it kind of gives up if it has taken abuse for too long. May it be smoke, may it be alcohol, may it be drugs, and all the wrong kind of food and your body will only take so much, and then all of a sudden you get to the point that things don't function anymore, and before you know, you got a whole handful of chemicals that
Mhm.
fit one part of the body but affect adversely other parts, and you have hands full of that put into your system. I'm not a doc, but that is common sense issues. But you're never too late because,
Yes,
as I said, I started when I was 57. When I found a book about ADHD, and then, and I started going to the gym, and I started changing my life. And then I started writing my books. So a lot of people that I know that are in the 40s or 50s, as you are, and but they say, no, I'm too old. Well, if you say you're too old, then you are too old. If you're 30, 40, or whatever. I say, for me, most of the stuff that I did, I started after I was 60.
it's not too late. I always tell to other women that it doesn't matter how old are you. You can be a beginner in something and you can start something and you can maybe achieve it. Why not? If you have some new goals, you can be like you competing in Arnold or anything. If it's not any border for it. We can achieve what we want.
Yeah. But I always believe what is important for me for the base is attitude, passion, work ethic. What will follow, no matter what it is, what will follow is success. And so so that I believe is very, very important. And then yeah, they don't have to become bodybuilders or Olympians. I'm not saying that. I simply your body needs exercise, diet extremely important. And diet does not have to be not tasting good. is once you get into the rhythm of being conscientious of diet and be more aware about chemicals. Most medical things are chemicals that fix
Yes.
one problem but create problems with other things. The fewer of those you have, and then for the rest to stay mentally healthy and by being active and have hobbies that make you active, then that creates longevity, and longevity with quality of life can be very, very good because at 84, for me, I'm still very, very active. I'm doing lots and lots of stuff, and I run circles around most people that are half my age.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because people don't, because it's not any example for them, for especially for my age women, or that they didn't see that somebody can live actively and with more they can be more energized if they're doing some kind of workout. I'm doing just home workouts, but I can help with them, and it's taking just 70 minutes every day and not more. And I'm I have
Yeah.
muscles also, so
Well, yeah.
it's
And you
and
look
and I
great.
feel amazing,
Yeah.
and anyone can do that.
Anybody. And then once you start and you stay the course, then you start liking it. I like going to the gym. I do. And then
Exactly.
the diet, it is not difficult for me. That I'm used to it and I enjoy it.
Yes. Um, do you have some? We have few more minutes. Do you have some other message? Some important message for my listener?
Stay positive, that and always look at you can, that the- you can't is not part of my language. You can. Everything is possible. And and the more you have a positive mindset and getting up in the morning, like what I was saying, is that I usually get up at 5:30. I'm not saying that other people should, but I always make my bed and I always think I'm late. And I like every day to me, even today where I live, we had a little bit of snow. It's not very nice out, but for me it is. It's beautiful. And so every day we so lucky where we are. And if I look at you and your client base, likely Eastern Europe, is I see Hungary, Romania, and all those places, and then you right next to the Ukraine, and things are extremely difficult there. And and I say to my friends here in North America, I do a lot of business in the US and obviously in Canada, that you are here so lucky, so fortunate. I fly around a lot. This morning I flew in from Victoria in the plane, and I sit by the window in the plane and I look outside and say it's paradise.
Yeah. So we have to appreciate what we have and every nice thing around us.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy you were here.
Thanks, Stella. I really enjoyed it. Did I talk too much?
No, that's why we are here. Thank you
Excellent,
so much.
Stella. I really appreciate it. Take care.
Me too. Okay, have a nice
You
day.
you can go to bed now. Good night.
I'm okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
Stella. We'll stay in touch.